Բարև ձեզ հարգելի բարեկամներ, Սփյուռքի ձայնը հեռուստահանդեսը դարձյալ ձեզ հետ է։ Այսօրվա մեր հաղորդումը ամբողջությամբ նվիրված է Հայ օգնության միության կազմակերպությամբ Նյու Յորքում տեղի ունեցած միջոցառումներին, նվիրված հայոց մեծ եղեռնի 100-ամյակին։
Earlier this month, several events dedicated to the Centennial of the Armenian Genocide were held in New York, initiated by the Armenian Relief Society, ARS Central Executive Board, with the cooperation of the Regional Executive of the ARS Eastern USA. First, an official opening of an exhibit titled Stitching to Survive, Handwork of the Armenian Woman at the United Nations headquarters. The exhibit was organized jointly by the ARS Central Executive Board and the Permanent Mission of the Republic of Armenia at the UN. This exhibit intended to tell the story of women who empowered themselves to support their families. The beautiful items on display were provided by the ARS Eastern USA and the Armenian Museum of America of Watertown, Massachusetts, with the active participation of its curator, Susan Lynn Senanyan. Among the audience were members of the ARS of Canada, Eastern and Western USA, as well as UN and NGO representatives, clergymen, and both Armenian and non-Armenian guests. Armenia's permanent representative to the UN, Ambassador Zorab Mnatsakanian, noted the unique nature of the exhibit as a symbol of the historic endurance of Armenian women who survived the crucible of the genocide.
With this condition of mind and spirit, the survivors have found their way to rebuilding their lives. Scattered around the world, they have applied their skills and knowledge to bring back on their feet their families and their communities. This exhibition is an example of perseverance of the women to revive warmth to their household, to feed their families, to educate their children, and to secure a confident future.
ARS Central Executive Board Chairperson Vicky Marashnian opened the proceedings, stressing the dedication and tenacity exhibited by Armenian women at all junctures of Armenian history to preserve the Armenian family and culture. In her speech, she spoke about the miraculous feminine force emerging from the crucible of oppression, from refugee to worker, from dependence to self-reliance.
This exhibit, Stitching to Survive, Handwork of Armenian Women, provides an insight into a period where women's evolving roles in family and society and the emergence of organized community merge in a fascinating narrative of building an American identity beyond appreciation of extended hospitality, now as proud citizens of their new country. The destitute Armenian survivors of the darkest chronicles of the Great War, the overwhelming percentage of who were women and children, brought with them an indomitable will to survive along with traditional skills. Just as the United States symbolized liberty, so in its own modest way, the needle represented freedom and economic independence for Armenian women and girls. Indeed, the sewing machine, the knitting and the embroidery needles, and the crochet hook became the tools of livelihood, survival, and eventual emancipation, enhanced by eventual collective action in the ranks of organizations such as the Armenian Relief Society, which would lead the Armenian women to play an even more active role in the post-World War II world as an NGO, admitted as an active member of the UN's Economic and Social Council. The exhibit also demonstrates the contribution of Armenian women to culture. It pays tribute to the significant artistry, technical skill, and cultural expression of Armenian women, time and again echoing the trauma of atrocities and unspeakable degradation experienced throughout the deportation and their aftermath.
Ambassador Mnatsakanian and Vicky Marashlian then cut the ribbon, officially opening the exhibit for the evening's guests. The exhibit at the UN headquarters is being held at a time when thousands of representatives from around the world are in New York City to take part in the sessions of the 59th Conference of the UN Commission on the Status of Women. The exhibit, which was on display for 1 week, demonstrated for all those who visit the Armenian women's everlasting will to survive and thrive after the genocidal attempt to annihilate the Armenian nation.
We are representing our culture, our beauty to others in United Nations. What is the significance of this exhibition in United Nations at the light of 100th anniversary of Armenian Genocide?
I think the significance is the dignity with which we come and showcase our story. I think it is a story of dignity. We, over 100 years since the dark days of the genocide, I think we have demonstrated a huge power of a nation to be capable to come out strong and confident. It started with hard work, the stitching, to bring, bread to the family, to bring the children to the new communities, to give them education. The women have been very hard-working people who have been so instrumental in making a reality what we have today. They're very confident Armenian people. The significance is that we are here amongst 193 nations. One of us is us. And we come here and say, this is us, one of you. We're not better, we're not worse, but we're confident.
It's very important for us as a women's organization. We believe this is our art, this is our heritage. It's something we're very proud of, and we hope we will keep going on with this for centuries to come.
The significance of having it at UN, the way I describe it to my friends is that having an exhibit at UN is like having a traveling show that goes to 193 countries. To me personally, this is such a miracle because Armenian women, I don't think really own their empowerment as much as they should. I know from my mom and my grandmother what they endured, what they went through, how they kept the family, the language, in many cases supported their family with stitching, which is why it's not just stitching to survive, it's stitching to empowerment.
A performance by the violinist Diana Vasilyan enhanced the evening's atmosphere to the enjoyment and appreciation of all those present. The exhibition, which was also made possible by main sponsors Mr. and Mrs. Harut and Vicky Marashnian, whose generous donation made the success of this historic endeavor possible, once again sending a message to the world by way of the UN of the continuous brilliancy and creative talent of the Armenian women. The next day, the symposium titled Rebuilding a Nation, the Armenian Women's Century of Resistance and Empowerment, organized by the ARS Genocide Centennial Committee, took place in the Salvation Army Hall in Manhattan. On behalf of the ARS Central Executive Board, Carolyn Chamavonian opened the proceedings, inviting those present to stand and honor the memory of the martyrs with a moment of silence. Following this solemn beginning, Chamavonian welcomed the participants and invited the Master of Ceremonies, Pauline Getsoyan, of the ARS Central Executive Board to introduce the designated speakers of the symposium.
Gradually, they reestablished family and community life, rebuilt their churches and schools, and resurrected their arts. And all of this was possible due to the strength, persistence, and determination of the Armenian woman.
Each speaker presented his or her views on the role of the Armenian women during and after the genocide as a powerful force in the survival and revival of family and culture. Each speaker presented his or her views on the role of the Armenian women during and after the genocide as a powerful force in the survival and revival of family and culture. In her address, Dr. Eleni Theocharis, member of the European Parliament and leader of the EU-Armenia Friendship Group, focused on the empowerment of Armenian women, noting the ravages of the Armenian Genocide years and the role played by Armenian women during the Artsakh Liberation War.
Today, Turkey has no right to knock on the European Union door and to state that it can proceed to the harmonization with the principles and values of the European Union, but not to respect its neighboring people. Those people who lived in the same land for centuries, but only their remains can be found there today. I promise you that as long as I am alive, Turkey will not join the European Union. Turkey will not join the European Union unless it becomes a civilized country, unless it recognizes the genocide, unless it gets out its troops from Cyprus.
Thank you very much for taking part at today's conference. In your speech, you spoke about Turkey's desire to join European Union, but you also spoke about the fact that as long as the recognition is not achieved, that desire will not come to fruition. Do you think that's enough pressure for Turkey to take such a major step from their perspective, recognizing the atrocities of 1915?
Well, to recognize the genocide of 1915 means that they will reform a lot of things in their country. They will improve democracy, they will implement the rule of law, they will adopt the chapter of the human rights and implement the human rights for everybody. This means a very big change, and I assume that as soon as they do this, they will realize that it is necessary to condemn the genocide and accept their responsibility. It is also important that as soon as they realize that in order to be members of the peaceful and democratic amphictyonia of Western world, they must be democratic themselves. So I believe that in order to become members of the European Union, they must improve democracy, they must withdraw their forces from Cyprus, they must respect all their neighbors, and then we see.
Well, we're approaching a rather grim milestone of 100th year of Armenian genocide. Do you think, where do you see this political processes going in terms of Turkish recognition and Turkish-Armenian relationships?
Yeah, for the moment, our intention is to commemorate the Centennial and to teach the world about this unbelievable and incredible crime, and to try to avoid any similar tragedies in the future in another places. Because, as you know, other genocides are going on right now. They never stopped. So it's good if we try to use the Centennial of the Armenian Genocide to put an end to this war crime.
You also spoke about Artsakh, and you spoke that there is going to be an elections, which is in itself a wonderful thought, because Artsakh is actually embodies the Western ideals in a region, because it's a government that represented by its people. But unfortunately, I'm sure you know that the situation is very tense. There's a lot of shooting, there's a lot of aggression from Azerbaijani side. Do you think these centennial events will aggravate and will cause additional problems? How do you see, in general, Artsakh conflict being a resolution for it?
Well, I think it's two different things. Artsakh is fighting for its self-determination, for the self-determination of its people. Brave people who fought for their life and they won for their liberty, for their freedom, and they won independence, despite the fact that the state is not recognized by the international community. It is important that the state exists. It's not a separatist movement from Azerbaijan, and they can prove it by all legal terms I can use. I mean, it's so obvious that it is a fight for freedom and independence from the fascist regime the communist regime of Azerbaijan. And the election is a procedure towards democratization and modernization of the country. Our duty is to monitor this election and support the people to elect whom they want to represent them in the parliament. And this is what I'm going to do on the 2nd of May in Stepanakert.
My final question, I'm interested on your thought on that. You said that if Armenia chooses to take a path towards European Union, it will be welcomed. However, we know the realities of Ukraine, Georgia, meaning there's a neighborhood, and of course we have Russia there. And Armenia, it's not a secret that very much is connected with Russia for its security and economy. Do you think it's a right path for Armenia to consider, to be inspired by?
Armenia joined the custom union with Russia, and that was an obstacle in the development of the relations of Armenia to the European Union. I don't know if this would continue to be an obstacle, we are fighting towards a free expression of the will of the people of Armenia. I hope that Armenia will feel safe, and unfortunately the European Union cannot provide safety and guarantee the independence of Armenia. You know that the threats from Turkey and from Azerbaijan are continuous, and Armenia needs a strong ally. The European Union doesn't have army. I don't know. I can.
It's a difficult question.
It's a difficult question. I will support Armenia to any decision taken democratically by the people, by the government. But I wish they will come to the European Union, and I will support all their efforts to the accession. But I cannot ignore the fact that Armenia is under threat. For me, the most important thing is the integrity, the territorial integrity and the sovereignty of Armenia.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
Dr. Isabel Kaprielian-Churchill, Emerita Professor of Armenian Immigration History, California State University, spoke about the Armenian needlework and emphasized the importance of feminine creativity in the struggle for physical and spiritual survival.
The perseverance of these survivor women symbolizes their resistance to genocide. We will not crumble. Not at all. In spite of all odds, they helped save some of our traditional and regional Armenian designs and techniques, our precious and tattered heritage.
Scout Tufenkjian, photojournalist and author of There Is Only the Earth, Images from the Armenia Diaspora Project, displayed her embellic photographs depicting worldwide Armenian communities.
When I kind of became a photojournalist, this was always percolating in the back of my brain as something that I wanted to explore. And after the success of my first book, I was able to kind of take a little bit of time and start working on it. And it kind of ballooned into this enormous, ambitious project where I've now documented Armenian communities in, I think, 22 different countries. And it's been amazing. It's been really amazing because there is this undefinable thread that ties us all together. You know, we can look very different. The altar boy in the church in Addis Ababa is half black and half Armenian, and there are, you know, mixed kids in India, and they feel as Armenian as a 100% Armenian kid in Yerevan or in Argentina. I mean, there's just this thread that ties us all together, and it's a pretty amazing thing. That you can go anywhere in the world and just kind of show up at the club, say, you know, Parevzes, you know, and from there you're part of the family. It's not even that you're a visitor. It's not even that you're a guest. It's that you're family.
Dr. Marion Mesropia, author of The Sacred Justice, The Voices and Legacy of the Armenian Operation Nemesis, spoke about the traditional Armenian women's silent yet persistent toil, using her grandmother, Eliza Dermelkonyan, one of the founders of ARS, as a prime and inspirational example.
After my grandmother died in 1990, we had to take apart her house, and we found the cache of letters. These letters have never been seen by another human eye since they were written. It gives me goosebumps telling you about this. So these letters are written by people like Saruman Tirilian, other people who were involved in the killing of Talat Pasha. They're written both to and from my grandfather, Aron Sachaklian. They are also written to the Central Committee of the Armenian Revolutionary Federation. At the time, the Central Committee was located in Boston, and that was a Central Committee for all of North America. So they were pretty powerful. They were assigned the task of Nemesis, as it turns out. This is in 1919 when the World Congress was held. The ARF assigned it to this Central Committee, and they worked pretty autonomously. So that's probably why those letters were where they were. So we found them in 1990, and my mother, bless my mother, she took them to her house, cataloged them so that I knew what was what. They were all located in envelopes. So I was able to get a pretty good sense of what was there, and she did a summary. She did not translate them. I think then it was just enough for her. She she was in shock a little bit. I mean, I've used the word radioactive. I truly think that this file for her was radioactive, because what do you do with it? Who do you talk to about it? She put it in her basement, and it underwent 2 floods. So when I got it, after my mother died, I was peeling these pages apart. Some of them were still wet, and laying them out so the sun could get at them. And then the sun had not seen these for almost 100 years. So at that point, my cousin came over, and the 2 of us sat down and we worked on these letters, and we figured out what was in them. And at that point, I knew I had to write the book.
Barod Maronyan, executive producer of the Armanoid production team, reevaluated the role of pre- and post-genocide Armenian women by showing segments from his film Orphans of the Genocide and discussing his upcoming project Women of 1915.
Now, in the future, what's coming up is on April 22nd, 2015, it will air in Tampa, a PBS station, the largest PBS station in the area. And the same day, on KCET, Los Angeles, it will air on that station in Los Angeles on April 22nd, 2015. And the beauty about this is, earlier I said we had already reached 20 million households. With one broadcast, we'll reach another 5.6 million. And since KCET is, you see that red logo there, Link TV, is connected to Link TV. Through Link TV, another 33 million households will be reached. Through satellite TV, people who have DirecTV or Dish Network, they can watch this also on that day. That's a huge number. And if we add them up, we're at 50.6 million households so far. And my personal goal is by the end of 2015, make that number 100 for the 100th anniversary.
Women of 1915 is about the plight of the Armenian women, and a larger part of the film is about all those non-Armenian women who came to the rescue of their Armenian sisters. And these women were from all over the world, specifically from the States, Canada, and Scandinavia. These ladies at their early ages of 19, 20, 21, they left their plush life behind and ran into the killing fields of the Armenian Genocide to save Armenian women and children. So the film primarily is on this.
And what are your impressions about today's event?
Well, today's event was amazing in the fact that we heard a lot of eye-opening topics, not only about the genocide but about the survival, and of course about the amazing fact that behind the success of the survival were the Armenian women.
3 days of events dedicated to the Centennial of the Armenian Genocide concluded with a commemorative dinner and cultural program that took place in New Jersey under the auspices of His Eminence Archbishop Oshagan Choloyan, Prelate of the Eastern USA. The evening began with welcoming remarks by Anahid Ogulyan, followed by the national anthems of the U.S. and Armenia, as well as the ARS anthem performed by Husher. The invocation was read by His Grace Bishop Anushavan Tanelyan, followed by remarks of ARS Central Executive Board member Vicky Marashnian.
105 տարիներ առաջ մեծի եղերնի վաղորդյային գարձես գրահելով գարիկը քալիկ աղեդը ազատագրական պայքարի ակնառու ռահվիրա ագունին զննթյան անունով Խաչատուր Մալումյան իմի փերելով ամերիկահայ գիներու առանցին կորձող այլազան մեծ ու փոքր միությունները Նյու Յորքի մեջ հիմը թրավ գազագերբությամը, որ գոչված էր դառնալու հայ գիներու ամենամեծ պարիսիրական միությունը, որուն հետ եղերնյան մարդասիրական լայնածավալ գործունեությունը ծանոթ է բոլորին, հայ թե օդար, իր անսակարդ նվիրումով եւ աննախընթաց հետևողականությամբ ի խնդիր հայաբահման իր ծրագիրներուն իրականացման.
In her remarks, ARS Eastern USA board member Sevan Kalejian said,
Ասցենարգը գնվիրենք մեր մեուգես միլիոն նահատակներուն եւ հայապնության միության անընկերուներուն, որոնք ցեղասպանության սկսնական օրեն իրենց ամենահամես պայմաններում մեջ իրենց կարելի է շատ ավելի ներին։ Այս երեգոն սիրելիներ մենք կնվիրենք մեր շատ սիրելի
ընկերներուն եւ ընկերուներուն, որոնք 1915 թվականին Ամերիկային մեջ հիմնեցին հոմի հայկական դպրոցները։ Մենք ասերեկոն գնվիրենք մեր ասկանվեր ընկերներուն եւ ընկերուներուն, որոնք ցեղասպանության մի քանի տարի հետ արդեն ցերնարգած էին հայօգնության միության մեկ ոսկի ծրագիրը։ Սիրելի ներկաներ, ասքիշերը մենք գնվիրենք մեր բոլոր ընկերներուն եւ ընկերուներուն, որոնք գոտողը եկան մեր Ամերիկայի բոլոր հայկական քաղաքներում։ Հայօգնության միության մեր ընկերուները այդ օրերուն մեր հայ ժողովրդի մայրերն էին եւ մինչեւ հիմա կշարունակեն այդ սուրբ գործը։
Ambassador Zora Manatsakanian, permanent representative of Armenia to the UN, also attended this event to honor ARS members.
Մենք այսօր ունենք այստեղ օրինակ 105 տարվա օրինակ 105 տարի այն ինչ որ այսօր ՄԱԿ-ի օրակարգում է ձեր օրակարգում է 105 տարի դուք զբաղվել եք այս բոլոր հարցերով կանանց դերը հավասար իրավունքների հարցերում կանանց դերը էմանսիպացիայի հարցերում կանանց դերը որպեսզի աշխատեն որպեսզի հասարակությունները մեր ժողովրդին դուրս հանեն կոնֆլիկտներից որպեսզի թեթևացնեն այն դժվարությունները որոնցով մեր ժողովուրդը անցել է սա իսկապես 105 տարի սա հարստություն է What you do is extraordinary The Armenian women what you have been doing over this year and your dedication and commitment is something that elevates emotion I really appeal to you sustain that power of will and carry this on in a way that you bring in the young generation that the ARS continues with its extraordinary history. We started a long time ago. We started with the Armenian Red Cross and then you consolidated yourself. You are the Armenian Relief Society. I really commend you. Ես ձեզ շնորհակալություն եմ հայտնում, խոնարհվում եմ ձեր առջև եւ կոչ եմ անում շարունակել։
Vehanush Tekyan recited her poem dedicated to Daniel Varujan, which was then followed by musical performance of violinist Nune Melikyan performing works of Bach, Paganini, and Gomidas. Keynote speaker Matthew Karanyan addressed the gathered guests and spoke about ARS Centennial dedication to the Armenian nation.
For the past century, the Armenian Relief Society has been engaged in many activities, cultural activities, educational activities, relief activities. In 1926, one of its first and most critical projects was the One Orphan, One Gold Coin project, which was designed to repatriate and free so many of our orphans who had been taken by Kurds and Turks after the genocide. One of my uncles, a 5-year-old, was one of those people who was kidnapped during the deportations. Today, after 100 years, the ARS is some 20,000 members strong in nearly 30 nations around the world. And you know, if you pick up a newspaper in just about any Armenian community worldwide, you can read about all that the ARS is doing and all that it has done. You can read about all the projects that are underway by the ARS. But what you won't read about, and what I want to emphasize tonight, are the intangible things that the ARS has accomplished. You know, this book, I published this book 3 weeks ago, Historic Armenia After 100 Years. And the words Armenian Relief Society do not appear anywhere in the book. And yet, the ARS totally permeates the book. The ARS is on every page of the book. The ARS for the past 100 years has been nurturing and nourishing the Armenian nation, has made it possible for poets and artists and photographers and professionals to engage in their craft, have freed us up so that we can rebuild our nation.
Vocal performance by Husher, accompanied by guitarist Peter Dukales, performed Armenian songs.
Du am rotsnes hezar Vachenu mem garodas charanem Yes gadarnamuim kirgas kes garanem Gaparvem Vachenu mem garodas charanem Kes chalelen talanelen galanelen Kovam kera avirelen tunim hayreni Chachkarnerat artsuknerov galavana Agachumem ganchir tuildur dundarana Chachkarnerat artsuknerov galavana Agachumem ganchir tuildur dundarana
Zurab Balakchian read a poem written by Kevork Emin Sasuntsineru Bara. Artistic performance was provided by Kevork Murat, accompanied by cellist Eri Bogosyan playing Gomidas. The evening concluded with closing remarks by ARS USA Eastern Region Chairperson Talin Dalian, who thanked all the participants, and especially the organizers, as for making this series of events a success. She also thanked the participating artists. These 3 days of commemorating the Centennial in New York, initiated by the ARS Central Executive Board, demonstrated the indomitable resolve of the Armenian women, as well as the role of the ARS members as torchbearers and guardians of the Armenian identity, both in the homeland and in the diaspora.
Մենք ուխտյալներ հայօգնության սուրբ կորձին լույսի փանակ եւ քծության խաչուհի կոյամարդին մեկ սրբազան մեր թադին ցեզ գբերենք հայ գնոջ սիրտը ոսկի օդար երկրի հովերուն թեմ մոլեքին հայ ծբրության չավահենք մշտաբար եւ թող շունչ տա հայոց ջախի գրագին մեր շրտներուն պրոդագով ամեն պար մենք ուխտյաներ հոմի բայձար տրոշին միշտ կմնանք արի բահագն անցյալի մինչև ձաքի արտարության վարարփի